Jon Stewart, in a way, is a kind of elitist himself. I mean, he's brilliant, but he's part of the elite comedic establishment. He is. Come on, he's a multimillionaire
No,
comedian.
but then why isn't Stephen A. Smith elitist? No, you can't have
because
both ways.
I think the sport, in a way,
I tell you why. Because in a way, but Stephen A. Smith isn't elite, even though he's a celebrity. That doesn't make any sense.
Cenk Uygur was a guest on Piers Morgan Uncensored as part of a panel that included Harry Sisson, Geraldo Rivera, and Dr. Cornel West. This was a rare instance on Piers Morgan show where he had a panel that wasn't made up of a bunch of right-wingers. In this section of the debate, Cenk Uygur and the others talk about the possibility of Stephen A. Smith running for president. So we're going to take a look at these clips from Piers Morgan Uncensored. I will share my thoughts on this as well. Let's get into it together.
Cenk, let me bring you in here. It's a really interesting debate for the soul of the Democrat Party. You've been immersed in this for quite a while now, and I think you've seen the way the wind was blowing way before a lot of people. But when you see someone like Stephen A. Smith, what do you think? I mean, I just think he's clearly flirting with this. He's getting more popular. I think people really like him. He's articulate. He's intelligent. He's strong. I see him standing up to LeBron James and stuff when they have spats or whatever. He's clearly got a fearless streak in him. Why not Stephen A. Smith?
Yeah. So I want to have a clarifying conversation here, and I want to offer you a better celebrity than Stephen A. Smith. Look, I got no problems with the brother, and I'm not trying to hate, okay? But, I mean, saying the first thing he'd do is economics. What does that mean? What's the policy behind economics? He said he checked with his pastor. I think it's more likely that he checked with his publicist. But it's okay. It's okay. God bless, to each his own, okay? So I'll get to the celebrity in a second. But guys, there's three wings of the Democratic Party. It's driving me crazy that you all are talking about it in a way that makes no sense, and you lump in people that don't belong together. I get why. But so the three wings are what you guys keep talking about, radical left, woke left, whatever you want to call it, right? But then you've got the establishment, and that's the part that you guys never talk about. So that's the Kamala Harris, Joe Biden. They're not woke. That's not their problem. Their problem is that they were elitist, served the donor class, or establishment figures. Hillary Clinton, same exact thing. Hillary wasn't woke at all. She was just establishment 101. Those are two different problems. Then there's a third wing that I'm in, which is economic populism, that Ro Khanna's in, Nina Turner's in. So Nina Turner brings in basically the black wing of the populist movement and talking about the freedom budget that the civil rights movement talked about. Why? It's an economic issue. It's about populism. It's about raising wages. So what do we focus on? How can the Democratic Party win? That's the most important thing. So higher wages, lower drug prices, lower housing prices, paid family leave, anti-war, money out of politics. These are all Democratic policies that are all intensely popular, over 2/3 for each one of those things. So, we talk about, Stephen A. Smith gets a lot of airtime. He does, but why? You guys mentioned Wes Moore. Wes Moore's an incredibly charismatic guy. I'm not sure that's the candidate that I want, but I'd be open to it. But he just doesn't get enough airtime, right? Same thing for Ro Khanna, wonderfully articulate. Geraldo's complimented him in the past, and he's a really smart guy. But not just that. Then we've got some real populists like Richard Ojeda running in North Carolina 9. And he served 24 years in the Army, ain't nothing to do with woke. It's about delivering for the average American. But Piers, if we want to be obsessed with celebrities, why not Jon Stewart? Jon Stewart's the only celebrity who's actually gotten a bill passed when he wasn't even in Congress. It was spectacular. It was amazing. If I could take Stephen A. Smith's hype and his chutzpah and the way that he gets out there and runs to the spotlight and put it on Jon Stewart, we'd have a winning combination.
But you know what I would say to that? And it's interesting. I love Jon Stewart. But I think if you walked around with Jon Stewart and Stephen A. Smith in LA or New York, you're right. Okay? The smart crowd would all rush up to Jon Stewart. You're the Messiah. If you took them both down to Florida, to Texas, to Alabama, right, to Middle America, if you took the pair of them down there, it would be the other way round. You would see the people on the streets resonating far more with Stephen A. Smith than they ever would with Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart, in a way, is a kind of elitist himself. I mean, he's brilliant, but he's part of the elite comedic establishment. He is. Come on, he's a multimillionaire comedian.
No, but then why isn't Stephen A. Smith elitist? No, you can't have
because
it both ways,
I think
Piers.
the sport
you can't
in a
say
way,
that Jon Stewart's
I
elite
tell you
because
why,
he's a
because in a way,
celebrity,
if
but
you
Stephen A. Smith isn't elite, even though he's a celebrity.
I think
that
the
doesn't
thing
make
about,
any sense.
because he commentates on a sport which is about as far from elitist in terms of where most of the players come from that you could imagine, right? Because they're mostly working class Americans.
I agree with what Cenk Uygur is saying about the policies that the Democrats need to be running on real policies. This thing that Piers Morgan is saying that Jon Stewart is an elitist and Stephen A. Smith is not is just idiotic. I totally agree with disagree with what Piers Morgan is saying here. But what both of them are missing, and we're going to see the other people speak here as well, is among the many, many things, terrible things that Donald Trump has done to our country, he's also opened up this can of worms of completely unqualified people running for president and maybe becoming president like Donald Trump just because they're on TV and because they're famous. And I like Jon Stewart. I think that Stephen A. Smith is a little bit of a clown, but I don't necessarily have anything against him. But I would also put both of them in that category of being unqualified. It used to be, prior to Trump, you had people like Barack Obama, senator from Illinois, Joe Biden, senator and then vice president, George W. Bush, governor of Texas, Ronald Reagan, governor of California. So if Stephen A. Smith or Jon Stewart want to become president someday, run for mayor of the city that they live in, become a member of Congress, run for governor, become governor, or, maybe become a vice president. But this just skipping beyond everything and then just going directly to president, where we should have somebody who is very, very qualified instead of someone very unqualified like Donald Trump, it's just insanity. And politics is the only profession that I can think of where people, and it hasn't always been this way, but the sort of conventional wisdom now is, I want somebody who has never done that before, who's succeeded in some other area of life. Well, you wouldn't take somebody and say, they're a successful businessman. Let's make them a heart surgeon. Or, they created an app or did well in Silicon Valley or whatever. I want to make them a pilot to fly my plane. I mean, nobody in any other profession, you would want somebody with experience. But in America, we have this idiotic notion now that we want a president who's somebody who has never been in politics before. It's just absolutely insane. And I don't know why Cenk Uygur or Piers Morgan, or we're going to see with the other members of the panel, why none of them are saying that.
One thing Jon Stewart has done that's elitist. There isn't one thing.
No, I think by definition, if you're part of
wonderful people,
I would say if you're part of the New York elite comedic TV set, you are by definition part of the media establishment. Let's put it like that.
How is Stephen A. Smith not part of the TV set? I mean, the man is glued to the TV. And why are we having a conversation between Stephen A. Smith and Jon Stewart?
Because I think they're very different.
You know what?
Let me ask the biggest TV star of the four of us, of five of us, and that is, sorry, Cornel, it's not you.
David Chappelle to run. He got some good, Ellen.
I'm going to ask Geraldo, who is by far the biggest TV star of the five of us. Geraldo, Jon Stewart v. Stephen A. Smith. Your thoughts?
I like Jon Stewart a lot. I think he's brilliant in his comedy, his sarcasm, and I think that's his greatest strength, is his strong suit. But I don't think sarcasm sells the way populism does. Stephen A. Smith has indicated and gives off the vibe. Sometimes it's indescribable.
He's from the Bronx.
A mystery where it comes from.
He's from the Bronx.
It's a charisma that Trump has. Trump is Trump is the biggest movie star on earth right now.
Yeah.
He's charismatic. He's magnetic. He's someone who I think that he's survived these 100 days, sometimes catastrophes of his own making, but he has emerged. He had the great meeting with the Canadian Prime Minister today. I think that I want to add quickly, parenthetically, I also don't want you to exclude Sean Hannity, I think it would be a wonderful candidate for president. And either of the Cuomo brothers, Andrew, the former governor who's now running and is the probable next mayor of New York, and also Chris Cuomo, who I submit was the first to recognize in Stephen A. Smith this possibility. However unrealistic it may be, that Stephen A. Smith might be a viable candidate. But I think the main point that we are all talking about and avoiding is that the Democrats have to shake off what they have done up until now. They have failed utterly. They failed when they did not bounce Joe Biden from the candidacy long before, where it was recognized he was borderline dementia. And I love the guy, and he's only 8 months older than I am. I feel regret that he did not have the grace and the pragmatism to withdraw much earlier. And so the Democrats could have had a primary. I don't think Kamala Harris would have won that primary, even if it was a quick one on a short schedule, if you remember how she bombed the last time she tried. And I think that she's also going to be an awful candidate for governor of California, and the Republicans will have an opportunity there because they see that, for one thing that has not been mentioned, immigration. The Democrats have been so wishy-washy on immigration. They all they do is recite the mantra and the Statue of Liberty, and don't recognize how offensive immigration is. The border has to be sealed, and then you need compassion, you need attention, but immigration is an issue that is that's the elephant in the room. Has not been mentioned, but I wonder what Stephen A. Smith would say about immigration. He's from Queens. Queens has 140 different ethnicities.
Well, you know what? He was quite strong about it, and he cited something I've said a lot. He quoted me, which is that actually the biggest deporter in modern presidential times was Barack Obama, who deported over 3 million people, way more than Trump has done. But the left didn't even know. When I asked my liberal friends...
Obama didn't gratuitously terrify people. And
Obama
I think that Trump has done it so unnecessarily.
Well, as always, it can be the way Trump goes about it more than what he's actually doing. I mean, Harry, look.
Piers brings up this thing about Obama having deported more people than any other president all the time as a gotcha question to people on the left, and people on the left always know about it. He acts like nobody on the left knows anything about it. People on the left were upset about that at the time when Barack Obama was in office. So this is just Piers Morgan typically being disingenuous.
Look, there's a lot of names being thrown around here. You represent the young wing of the Democrat Party. Who would you like to see become the next leader of your party?
I think there are so many talented people in the Democratic Party right now.
But who gets your juices flowing, honestly? I mean, who actually exercises you to think, yeah, that's the one. That's the Bill Clinton that can energize us. That's the Barack Obama. Because they're the two Democrat leaders in my adult life where I've really felt, wow, those two. And I thought they were both rock stars. I don't see a rock star out there. And in fact, the nearest thing I've seen to it is Stephen A. Smith, genuinely.
And I think that a lot of people share your view. For me personally, I think folks like Pete Buttigieg, or as we've talked about today, Wes Moore, who is incredibly charismatic.
Pete Buttigieg has no chance. No chance.
You really think so?
No.
I think Pete Buttigieg is incredibly smart. I think he's really articulate. I think he portrays himself really well.
People are never going to vote for him to be president of the United States.
I don't see why not. I mean, he has served.
He doesn't have enough charisma.
Military.
You've got to burst.
I think Pete Buttigieg
to win these days, you've got to be charismatic. You've got to have something about you which can carry people with you. I don't see that in Pete Buttigieg at all.
I think that his ability to go into Republican spaces like Fox News so consistently and make the case for the Democratic Party is so impressive. There's not really many people in the Democratic Party doing that right now. I think that strategy in and of itself can kind of peel some people who might be Biden-Trump voters or typically a little bit more conservative.
Cenk's got his hand up.
This guy totally unrealistic. Totally unrealistic, Pete Buttigieg.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you heard the Saturday Night Live last week had something on Trump signing presidential executive orders banning biracial ads on TV. There are too many biracial ads with a black husband and a white wife and vice versa and so forth. Pete Buttigieg and his sexuality. Maybe for the woke class, we're way overdue to recognize that you could be gay and be a wonderful, charismatic, inclusive leader. But that is, if you talk about elephants in the room, there's absolutely no way, despite the fact that Pete Buttigieg is a legitimate war hero with combat experience.
Geraldo, you don't think a gay person
never happened.
You don't think a gay person could ever be president?
Wait, hold on. I think that it is exactly the. Go ahead. But I think that it's just if you talk about woke, that's woke.
All right.
But like in 2008, Obama.
No.
Go on,
in 2008,
no, this is all wrong.
Sorry,
okay. So hold on, guys. Hold on. Look, you want to talk about people going to Republican, right-wing, independent spaces. I do that, right? And so when you, what I'm trying to get at is independence, because that's who you need to win elections, right? We need to get real here. So the problem with being woke isn't someone who's gay. Who cares if they're gay or straight, et cetera? That's not the issue at all. So you could say, hey, some of the DEI went too far, the transport stuff issues went too far, but that isn't about being gay or not being
crazy.
Gay. No, the problem with Buttigieg has nothing to do with that. The problem with Buttigieg is that he appeals to the elites. He's a super smart guy. So when he goes on TV and he talks about how he speaks 6 languages, all the elites are like, yes, Buttigieg, he's so Harvard educated, right? But that doesn't appeal to the average guy. That's not going to win over independents. That's his actual problem. By the way, Andrew Cuomo is also part of the establishment. Sean Hannity is also part of the establishment. What does the establishment always want? Serve the donors, serve the donors. That's the problem with Buttigieg. That's the problem with all those guys. What are we doing as economic populists? Look, I started Rebellion PAC. We're building a team. So you give me any one of those guys and our team is going to win because we've got all these different people in there. Khanna is so strategic and smart, and Ojeda's like a lead pipe. He's a populist. Then you got Nick Hanauer, who's a super smart guy. He's not part of Rebellion PAC or anything, but he's part of our allies. And he's got a middle out strategy. That's an economic model where you give to the middle class. Stop giving to the rich.
Okay.
Give to the middle class. And the middle class then spends the money and then it creates a healthier economy.
Okay, let me bring in.
It's smart, and it's also electorally the right strategy.
All right, Cornel.
But let me agree with my brother Sheikha that I mean, I'm blessed to have a show with Nina Turner on Tavis Smiley's magnificent 1580 talk show in LA. Brother Geraldo knows Brother Tavis. We both love Geraldo and Tavis, even though Geraldo and I fight on all kind of issues. But Brother Sheikha is right. And Nina Turner is one of the giants in the Democratic Party precisely because she has an affinity to Bernie Sanders, who's the best thing that the Democratic Party ever had. Even though he's never in it, he's certainly of it. But the reality is that the establishment of the Democratic Party would never in a million years put up with economic populism. It would never put up with Bernie. It would never put up with Nina Turner. That upsets me, but I recognize that is a reality. That's why I reached the conclusion, and this is why I ran, this is why Justice for All, the party that we're trying to generate, that the Democratic Party is beyond redemption. Republican Party is beyond redemption.
No.
We're living in a spiritually sick country with organized greed and unbelievable weaponized hatred. And they're both part of a two-party system that is so corrupt. The donors control both parties. People know that 90 million Americans, the biggest bloc, decided not to vote at all. How come? Because they know the system is corrupt. They know it's legalized bribery and normalized corruption and politicized larceny. That's what American politics is. And we have to come to terms with that. That's why the empire is declining. That's why the empire is decadent. That's why they're grabbing for a tyrant, a gangster named Trump. Trump is able to mobilize that fear. Everybody knows he's beneath mediocre. Everybody knows he's corrupt. Everybody knows he's a liar. Everybody knows he's a gangster. That's who he is. God bless him.
He's also a graduate of He's also a graduate of the Wharton School.
Well, Geraldo, that doesn't mean that somebody who graduated from Wharton can't be a crook. Just because somebody went to an Ivy League or a really upper crust university doesn't mean they're not a crook. There are some of those who have gone to prison. But I have to totally agree with Cornel West. we have a very damaged system. They were never going to let Bernie Sanders be president. I think all of the talk of AOC president, I don't think that's ever going to happen. The Democratic Party aren't going to is not going to let her near the nomination. In terms of Pete Buttigieg, I mean, I think Cenk is correct, and I think Geraldo is correct. I think both of them are correct. I think the biggest key with Pete Buttigieg, if he weren't gay, I think he would have a lot better chance of winning. I mean, we found out in this last election, I mean, a lot of people already knew this, but I think many of us really found out that the country's more racist than we thought it was or hoped it was. The country's more xenophobic than we thought it was. The country's more homophobic than we thought it was. So I don't see us having a gay president anytime soon. I think Pete Buttigieg is, Piers Morgan says that he's not charismatic. I don't agree with that at all. I think he is charismatic. But I want to go back again to Stephen A. Smith and just these other celebrity types in general. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do you agree with me that we're in this dangerous territory where we're just going to get another person who's completely unqualified like Donald Trump? Fortunately, Stephen A. Smith, I don't think he would get more than single digits in a primary. I don't really see him going anywhere. I think this is wishful thinking on his part and a lot of other people's part that he's going to go anywhere. I don't really see a lot of great candidates out there on either side. I hope that somebody will come out of the woodwork, kind of like Barack Obama did, just sort of come out of nowhere and be a super charismatic force and take over. But right now, I just don't know who that is. But Stephen A. Smith, I don't see him having much chance. And Cenk and Geraldo and Piers Morgan and the rest of them didn't say this, but we really need to go back to having qualified people who have been at least a member of Congress. But, go back to the days of somebody who was a senator or a governor. We need to get away from these unqualified people. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this. Do you agree with Cenk or Piers Morgan or Cornel West, or do you agree with me? Make sure to give me a like and subscribe. I'm Chris on Culture, and I will see you in the next video.